top sports personalities from around the nation in order to provide you next-level insight and analysis into your Cleveland Browns. Blue Wire Hustle proudly presents All Eyes on Cleveland. And now, here is your host, Brad Ward.
What is happening? It is a glorious Thursday evening in June in Ohio. The weather is beautiful. It's good to have you here on All Eyes on Cleveland. Mikey's on the ones and twos. We got an AMA mailbag question show for you tonight. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to bring the guest here in shortly. Real quickly here, his name is Josh Keatley. We've got some news and notes to break down, then we'll dive right into your questions. I know a lot of you guys entered some really good questions tonight, and it's going to be fantastic. So we're looking forward to getting to that and everything else here off the top. This is All Eyes on Cleveland. We appreciate you tuning in. And while you're here, if you're watching it live or on playback, just go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you can keep coming back and getting this awesome content. You know, it's free. All paid admission is just that one little click. That's all you got to do. So, and we're going to get Mikey to go ahead and kill that music for us. Thank you, sir. Mikey is a gentleman and a scholar and always on top of things around here for us and taking care of business. And we're going to get Josh Keatley in here. Now, Josh Keatley is one of my favorite guests. Always have him on. He is fellow writer at the Browns Wire. He's now writing for the Buckeyes Wire as well. So you guys may have seen some of his stuff over there. But we are, both writing at the Browns Wire. And he also is the host of the Browns Wire podcast. What is up, Josh? How are we doing tonight, sir?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. It's an honor to be on your show each and every time you invite me because the guest before me is always someone who's far better and more qualified than me.
Oh, that's not true. That is not true. That's
you only had a college football Hall of Famer on last week. No big deal.
It's all good. What do we got here? Who will get starting job between Greedy Williams, Greg Newsom? That's a great question. We'll get to that, sir. Thanks for the question, Troy. We will get to that for sure. As I love that question, actually. One of my training camp battles to keep an eye on for sure there, Josh. So how are things going with you, sir? Real quickly, let's touch base, make sure everything's good. You're writing at the Buckeyes Wire, putting out a lot of content. That's great.
That's right. Very exciting stuff. Very happy that Tommy Togiai made his way to Cleveland, so I get to kind of double dip a little bit. And, the Browns are all reports coming out of OTAs in Cleveland think that they're going to be very, very good. So that makes me very, very excited.
Happy and healthy, my friend. Happy and healthy coming out of minicamp, and that's what we want, right? So good stuff there. Let's dive into a little news and notes here before we get to the questions. We got some stuff going on here with the Browns. I'm going to go ahead and bring some of this up here and kind of go over it real quickly. All right. There's our All Eyes on Cleveland Browns AMA Ask Me Anything with Josh Keatley of the Browns Wire tonight. And that's what you're watching right now. Let's get into some news and notes. So this came across the wire the other day, Josh. Mayfield noted earlier this offseason he was in no rush to get a deal done. The quarterback's agent, however, Jack Mills, told Tony Grossi of thelandondemand.com that he is not planning to wait out the other two quarterback deals. We're not going to be dragging it out, Mills told Grossi. I think there's been enough contracts done for quarterbacks lately that give us a pretty good idea of what the market is. And of course, we know that the salary cap isn't going up this year. What is going up? But there is a cap. But it's going up next year and next. We pretty much know what's coming down the road and what's been done. We don't have any particular reluctance about doing a deal. So really coming, I guess, from his point of view and his camp, just saying basically, I guess, Josh, we're ready to do the deal now. Like, we don't want to wait. I kind of thought that they would want to wait because it's more money, I think. What do you come out make of Jack Mills, Baker's agent, saying this to Tony Grossi?
Yeah, we talked about the Baker extension the last time I was on the pod, and I'm in the same camp as you, where I thought that waiting would only benefit Baker and the, his hand, if you will. I think it's kind of just all talk, I guess.
Yeah.
What's he supposed to say? It's an agent, right? Let's. I'm sure he wants to sign it and get it done. I'm sure Baker seems like he's pretty much all in Cleveland. So it wouldn't surprise me if Baker is like, hey, let's get this done. But I don't think the agent actually cares, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't. I get what he's saying, I guess, but there's some points to make on this, and we'll get to this here in a minute. But there also let's touch bases. Another thing that came out I don't have on here: David DeCastro got released by the Steelers today. Did that surprise you, Josh?
It does, because that's it. That's 4 offensive linemen gone from last year. I don't know what their plans are, and that wasn't a good offensive lineman. I don't know. I have no idea what they're doing. I have no idea. I mean, that wasn't a good offensive line to begin with.
Rather shocking move, I thought. Yes.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, our third news and notes point here, as you can see here, while at a youth football camp, Kareem Hunt stumped for Browns to pay teammate Nick Chubb. Pay that man, Hunt said to the Athletic's Zach Jackson. He's been on the show a couple times here. He's a freak of nature. He's like a brother to me. Hope we can play together for a long time. That's a more empathetic response than Chubb's own response to the contract situation, of course, right? The bulldozing back recently said he wasn't worried about his next deal, but added, Cleveland's where I want to be. Chubb and Hunt make the best backfield duo in the NFL, right? So while the Browns are also working on an extension for Baker Mayfield, QB has a 5th-year option. Chubb's deal is done this year. So that's the relevance there. So, with that in mind, of course, Kareem Hunt's going to say that. They're really close, right? So, I thought that was pretty cool that he stumped for him, as I said there. But this brings us to, we can just kick off our questions right here because some of these questions have to do with contracts. So let's dive in. One of our buddies, my buddy here on YouTube, has a podcast of his own, Illegal Ham to the Face, my favorite podcast name going, for sure. You think Baker gets extended this year or next? And if you had to pick one to sign, would you sign Ward or Chubb? Let's start with Baker. Do you think it does get done this year or next, Josh?
Gosh, the last time we talked, I said next year, and I stand by that. But there's so much talk about it. It makes me feel like there's a priority. But I don't understand. I would put Chubb as the priority because his contract is the one that's up soonest, right? That seems pretty simple to me. So that would be my priority. Therefore, I would think that Baker's probably going to go into the season without a contract extension. That's my inclination.
Yeah. So here's my thing on Baker, right? So his agent says all this stuff, and I've been listening to some people talk about this stuff. One interesting aspect that I wanted to make note of, okay, Lamar doesn't have an agent, Josh. So Lamar's camp is going to negotiate this deal. So I heard Florio talking about this, that any good agent will get that kind of thrown out of the market situation. So even if Lamar goes to the table first, because it's being negotiated by his mother, per se, like Baker's agent and Josh Allen's agent will get that thrown out of the situation. Like, hey, that deal doesn't really count towards the quarterback market because it was negotiated by a non-agent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. I never thought about that. You're the first person I've heard say that, but I mean, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I think a good agent would do that. So, like, if he comes, and I doubt, the only way that I think that it would not get thrown out by a good agent, coming to the table and negotiating for his client, would be if it was more than the $40 million, right? In that case, then you're using it to your advantage. But if it's somehow less than the $40 million, like I've heard the little whispers out of Baltimore that they may get this done before the season, right? If they do, and it's less than $40 million, I think Josh Allen's agent and Baker's agent just wipe that out of the way, and they're still looking at Dak Prescott's number. Now, I heard people on the radio today saying $33 million. $35 million for Baker, and that's kind of like the range that they're looking at. I think they're dead wrong. I think that he will get 40. I think his agent's going to want 40, and that's it. I think that Dak Prescott is the market for quarterbacks right now.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, you can't really, like, some people will look at the quarterback market, like here. We can bring it up here real quick.
I would not be if they, let's say they make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, right? Because that's basically what you're talking about, right?
Well, no, Patrick Mahomes second.
Okay, let's say he's the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I wouldn't be mad about it, but I would be shocked. I thought those top three, Mahomes, Prescott, and Watson, were kind of like in their own. They're in a different tier, not based off of skill, just off the luck of how their contracts landed.
Is Dak Prescott that much better than Baker Mayfield in your?
No. Baker Mayfield is better than Dak Prescott. I'll say that. I have no problem saying that. But I think there's more cachet, and Prescott means more to what the Cowboys are doing in their franchise. Yada yada yada. He's more of like the franchise face, just like Watson. I don't think Watson's a better quarterback than Mayfield. You can make the argument, but I think I would rather have Baker Mayfield over Deshaun Watson. But Deshaun Watson means more to that putrid franchise than Baker does to the Browns, if that makes sense. So that's kind of why I feel like those guys are getting overpaid based off of the situation of those teams. Just like Patrick Mahomes might be getting overpaid because the Chiefs do not want to mess up what they have, right? Even though he probably is the best quarterback in the NFL. There's different situations there.
I agree. I think you're right on what you mean by like what the player means to the team. I think, though, that when I evaluate this, and if I look at a player going, anytime when I'm looking at contracts, I think it's more about timing than it is necessarily apples to apples, player to player. Like, the last guy to get his contract is like the market, right? A lot of times. And sometimes there's outliers and stuff like that. But for the most part, the last guy to go to the table is kind of where they leave off. And the next guy to get his contract is usually going to get at least $1 million more than the guy before him. I mean, that's just kind of standard. So looking at this and saying, okay, yeah, he's not Russell Wilson, he's not Aaron Rodgers, I get that point, but I don't think that matters. I think what matters is the last person to go to the table was Prescott, and Mahomes is an outlier, and his deal's really not that good over the course of time. So we don't really even care what that is. So I think you're looking at Prescott's deal, and I think that all three of these guys are going to be aiming right in that $40 million range.
Yeah, and the 35, I feel like Baker Mayfield's situation is comparable to Russell Wilson. Hey, you might not be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, but we're building a team. So, you can kind of use that as an argument. I mean, notice how Tom Brady isn't in that list, right? You're trying to build around what he's got, and he might be. I think he's the kind of guy that might be able to sit back and realize that, if that makes sense.
So you think he'll give you a hometown discount, maybe?
I mean, I think if you make the guy the third highest paid quarterback in the NFL, it's not really a hometown discount. But I think he could see. Yeah, I think that you could use that to your position to not pay him as much as Dak. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if he went to the table this year, right, and they wanted to get a deal done now, they could maybe get it done between 35 and 40. But if they wait till next year, I think he's getting over 40 or 40. And above. That's just my thoughts on it.
You might be right. It's hard to say. Contract. It's like because there's so many dominoes that need to fall. Like you said, the market is so reliant on who got signed for what when. Yeah. So like you said, if Lamar Jackson signed, if the former NFL MVP gets signed for more money than Patrick Mahomes, that puts everything that puts everything in a flux because who's to say Baker played better than Lamar Jackson last year? Who's to say he doesn't deserve more money? Does that make sense? So I'm totally with you. I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think you make some good points, too, that he may feel that way. I mean, it's not like he's not a guy that can't go make money elsewhere. He's got a lot of big endorsements, right, and things like that. And his personality lends himself to that, so he's going to be able to do well. So, but it's really like if you aren't trying to get the most money, you're kind of frowned upon by the Players Association, right? Like, they want to push that number up. Like, so if you're the Players Association doesn't like it when Tom Brady takes hometown discounts. They want him to push that number up for every player that's going to come after him.
Maybe that might be true, but at the end of the day, if you're Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry, you're staring at me saying, "Listen, dude, if you take all it takes, because you can do some crazy stuff with the cap. If you take $5 million less a year, we can wiggle this around to where you're going to get OBJ and Jarvis Landry for the next 4. If you got someone in your ear telling you can win, they're close. They're damn close. And for 5, I would want to. If you're paying me $30 million a year and I get to win a Super Bowl, dude, I'm in. And I feel like he's probably the same way. Once you get to so much money, don't you kind of value winning over that amount?
I suppose this is his first contract, though. And I think you can make the case the other way. Like, I saw this year in a cap crunch year, teams that had supposedly no cap, negative cap, cheap players for millions of dollars. Like, if you want to get something done, you can kick the can down the road and play the cap gymnastics game and make it work. I mean, you can do it. I mean, let's be real. The Saints signed players, re-signed players. I mean, the freaking Tampa Bay Bucks kept every player on their roster.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you think that there's a chance that maybe we could look at, because everybody assumes it's going to be a 5, 6, 7 year deal. Do you think there's a chance that maybe we could be staring at a 2-year deal for that very reason?
I think Baker's deal is at least 4, probably 4 or 5.
I would think you're right. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. Like I said, we haven't really seen a front office like the one that Cleveland has right now.
You're right.
They seem to be doing things. They're doing magical things. So I didn't know if they could do something, if they're going to think outside the bun here.
Yeah. You make a great point about that. Like John, we saw that John Johnson's contract is one of the 5 best in the NFL. I just saw somewhere, rated wise, value wise, because of the discount that the Browns got on like a top tier safety on that deal to come to Cleveland to play. I mean, so you're right. They are doing some magical things. That's interesting. I think this topic is an interesting one. People feel differently about it. I think the timing has a lot to do with it, but you could be right. He may be the type of guy that says, "Hey, I get it. Let's do it now, and I'll do it for 35." And if so, that's great, and more credit to him. I think a lot of times people associate these negotiations with the player, and I think a lot of times the team is really just negotiating with the agent. Like, I hear people all the time say, "Oh, Nick Chubb is such a nice guy. He's such a good guy, and he's so this. He'll take whatever they give him, right? Because he loves the Browns." Well, I don't think they're not negotiating with Nick Chubb. They're negotiating with his agent, and his agent's job is to get him every last time.
Yeah. Well, that situation is also different too, because a running back, the shelf life is much shorter, right? Even if Baker's average, the bus he's the bus driver, right? Like, that's it's harder to replace that guy than a tire.
Sure. No question. Second part of this question here is if you had to pick one, would you sign Ward or Chubb first? Whose priority to you, Ward or Chubb?
Well, Ward's got they picked up the 5th-year option on Ward too, right? Right. So my if you're asking me who my priority is right now, it's definitely Nick Chubb. If you're asking me like who would I rather have long term, I mean, Denzel Ward's obviously more. I think he's probably more valuable to your franchise in the long term. But my focus is on Chubb. I'm trying to get it done, and I think that, and a lot of that's because I think that Chubb is going to. He has a solid case where he might lead the league in rushing this year, and he's only going to want more money. That's where my focus would be if I'm the Browns right now, is Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that priority right now should be Nick Chubb. I agree completely, but I think. When you're looking at the overall value long run, which one would I rather have? I think it's harder to find an elite cornerback than 100%. It is a running back. Yeah.
100%. I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, so we agree on that one for sure. As we move it along here on a All Eyes on Cleveland special Ask Me Anything show here on a Thursday night. I didn't know what to call it there. Okay, so which contract gets done first of all of them? You think it's Nick Chubb's?
It just makes more sense. His is the first one that's up, and he's great. He's so great. I don't know. I know everybody likes to say running backs don't matter, running backs don't matter. We've talked about this before in your show. That's true for the majority of backs, but Nick Chubb isn't like every other back. He's a top 5 NFL running back. Inarguable. It's inarguable, right? I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're right.
He's special.
He's special. I said the same thing about him, and the truth is this. And I've had a lot of people come on the show and argue for giving him the transition tag or the whatever tag, the franchise tag, right? So you can give him the transition tag and match anything if anybody offers it, and you might save yourself some money there. I say that, and people that watch my show are gonna be like, oh, here he goes again with this table, but here I go again with this table. But if we go to running backs, right, this is the deal that I would copy. 4 years, $50 million. If you look at what the transition tag and the franchise tag are for running backs, this is for next season, $12 million, right? So if you're going to franchise tag him, it's $12 million. Over 2 years, it's an average of $12 million or $24 million. Look at what Derrick Henry got. Really, this is a 2-year, $25 million deal. It's a franchise tag plus 1 more year guaranteed, and then you have an out. There's no dead money, nothing. Why not do that? This is the last guy this is as comparable of a contract as I think you're going to find for Nick Chubb. Go ahead.
Didn't Aaron Jones have a similar contract to that too? Like that's like, other than Christian McCaffrey, that's like the going rate, right?
Right. Well, Aaron Jones is worse. He actually got 1 year guaranteed. So he basically got a 4-year deal with $13 million guaranteed. So they basically gave him the franchise tag in guaranteed money up front and 3 years on the end that they can keep him as long as they want. But if he falls off, he's out the door. Same thing for the Browns. Same thing they're doing with Derrick Henry. Give him the 1 extra year of security. That's all you need to do, and then you can look down the road, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, he's right up there. I have no problem with that.
I think we're overcomplicating this situation with him. I think that, giving him the tag, this is the same thing as giving him the tag plus 1 year. Do we think he's going to fall off that fast?
You're 100% right. Even if that's the big debate, right? That's the big thing is, he's going to fall off. When is he going to fall off? So I would even be comfortable going all the way up to like $15 million a year, right? Where like Alvin Kamara's getting paid. I think Dalvin Cook's up there. Just the problem is you just don't want to make it any more than, like you said, like 4 years or whatever, because that's when you're on the hook. But I mean, he's worth 50 if he's leading the NFL in rushing or getting damn close to it, like he has been. He's worth 50. I would pay. Yeah. I'd pay him. I'd pay the man.
And you're only on the hook for the 2 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The other 2 are nothing. I mean, all right. This is a funny question we got from Santini here. How have you not been blocked by Grossi? Well, I'll ask you. Are you blocked by Grossi, Josh?
No, I don't like to start fires and argue with people. First of all, I don't think Grossi even knows who I am. I don't think I'm important enough on Twitter or active enough. But I don't get up in people's grill, and I'm not a troll, I guess. So I'm not blocked by anybody. I don't think.
The thing is, Grossi does get up in people's grill. That's the thing, right?
He does. So, if you respond to him.
Yeah, right. So Grossi makes me angry, right? And I'll be honest with you at times because I think he's an instigator. Like, I hated that whole thing with Baker when he pissed him off. I mean, like, he was picking a fight with him, right? Like, why do you want to do that in the press? And then, like, the other day, he asked Joe Woods if he felt like he was on the hot seat. Like, what kind of... Like, why are you asking that kind of question? I don't like the questions he asks, and I think he's trying to stir stuff up all the time. And I don't necessarily respect that kind of journalism the way that I respect others. I'll just leave it at that. But I am not blocked by Grossi because I don't think I've engaged him ever.
Exactly.
I don't think it's worth my time, to be honest, really.
He does like to
stir
the pot. Run away. Yeah.
You're right. Watching All Eyes on Cleveland on Ask Me Anything Thursday night here. We're moving along. Buddy of mine does great podcast, Hootie Trill at MBF, nothing but the facts _Trill. They go check out that show. They talk NBA, NFL, everything. It's a cool show. Is OBJ going to start and finish the season as a Brown, Josh?
Oh, yeah. I think he's going to stay. If this question is related to his health, I still say yes. If this question's in relation to him getting traded, I still say he's gonna stay. He's gonna stay at Brown. This is gonna be the year, bro. This is gonna be the year. I got a lot of faith in OBJ. I'm a big OBJ stan. I'm for it, dude. This is gonna be it, man. Everything's gonna fall into place.
Yeah, I tried to run when I got this question. I said my first reaction was immediately like, "Well, yeah, he's going to be here." But you run yourself through some scenarios. What if Baker regresses with Odell back because he feels that pressure or whatever, or it just doesn't work? Like it hasn't worked so far with him, right? Like, do the Browns say at some point, "Hey, it worked a lot better without OBJ for whatever reason at some point in the season and look to deal him, just get him out of there and go back to what worked so well last year where they were like a top 5 offense the second half of the year?"
Man, you know how I feel about this. If it's not OBJ's, first of all, there's a couple different factors, right?
It's not his fault. I know that.
Baker Mayfield got more comfortable at the end of the season. Second of all, if there was any pressure with Baker Mayfield and OBJ, I think that can be solved and will be addressed by the coaching staff. I have a lot of faith. Full transparency, I did not like the Kevin Stefanski hire. Now that he's here and I'm into it, I've seen it. I'm a believer, and I think that I think that he understands the chemistry needed, and he can address any issues that might be like that. Now, if there are any issues that's happening, that's why it's if Baker Mayfield feels some kind of pressure to stare at OBJ, Stefanski's going to figure it out. I just feel like this is going to be the year that everything falls into place and everything makes more sense. I just don't think. I never thought it was OBJ's problem to begin with.
I don't think it's OBJ's problem, but I think it did affect Baker, and that's what worries me. So do I think that the Browns will have you believe that this is not an OBJ Baker problem, that it was more of just Baker getting used to the offense, which sure, I'll buy some of that, but not all of it, because I watched his body language on the field, and I watched Baker try to force it in there. He was better without him, no doubt.
I do think that there is some. I think there's a little from column A, a little from column B. I do think that there was some Randy Moss effect there, where when Baker felt like Baker was looking at OBJ maybe more than he should have. I'm not going to deny that. I think that that's something that can be correctable, and I don't necessarily think it's something that's in his head, permanently.
Right.
That makes sense.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what you just said is what I'm hoping, is that he, the success the team had without OBJ humbles him a little bit to say, hey, I'm just going to go play my role, right? And then B, also Baker Mayfield has grown beyond that nonsense, right? I'm going to throw the ball to the open guy, period, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to be more comfortable, yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm hoping for, at least, okay? All right, let's moving on here. Interesting question about wide receivers here from the Land Sports at RBS_corrections. Or ask me anything. All Eyes on Cleveland special here tonight with Josh Keatley of the Browns Wire. As far as the future of wide receivers on this team, who is still here next year? #Browns, #OBJ. It's a good question, Josh, because there's a lot of question marks around this room after 2021, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts?
Yeah. I think that they're going to make it work out with Beck. If I had to put money on it, I'm thinking that they're going to make it work with Beckham and Landry. I think that they're going to make it happen with those two. It doesn't matter what their contracts look like. I think Anthony Schwartz, obviously, he just got drafted, so you can mark him down. Rashard Higgins, I think he'll still be here. He's obviously not breaking the bank. I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver that breaks the bank. So I think that he'll be here. Obviously, Donovan Peoples-Jones is still on his rookie deal. I think he'll be there. If you're asking me to pick like a flyer amongst the guys that are fringe roster guys, my money would be on Ryan Switzer. I think this is the year he stays healthy and shows his impact on special teams. So I think that I would probably, if you're making me lock in guys, those would be the guys I'd be more likely to lock in.
Okay, I disagree a little bit. I don't think they can continue after this year to pay both those guys. I just don't think they can. Well, if you want to sign Wyatt Teller, which I would rather sign Wyatt Teller than keep, I guess, both those guys, and you want to sign, Chubb, Ward, Baker, everybody, something's got to give somewhere, right? I don't think you can have all that money allocated to the wide receiver room beyond 2021, especially when, everything changes when that quarterback contract hits the books, right? So I think they're in this 2-year window, and we'll get into windows here in a minute with another question we have. But I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be really good. Everybody said that was one of my biggest takeaways from minicamp. I guess he has transformed his body even further. I mean, he already comes with the 6'3" frame and legit body and everything, and the great vertical and the speed. But I guess he came jacked to camp and looked fantastic to minicamp. So I'm high on deep Donovan Peoples-Jones' future. I think he can be a legit number 2 in the NFL eventually. So I'm big on him, and I'm big on keeping Jarvis no matter what. Because for me, he is like the end-all, be-all start and beginning of what this whole thing started and how the Browns are going. He's such a leader and big part of the culture of this team. And he still performs really well. Like clutch, like heart, soul, everything you want out on the field, leader. So I'm all about keeping him. OBJ, we'll see how he plays this year, but I'm okay with letting him go after this year.
I think that what is going to set this front office apart is that they're going to listen to all and any offers, and I think that goes for any player on the team. If so, you're wanting to call, they will pick up the phone and listen to what you have. So I don't think anything that you're saying is inaccurate. I 100% agree with you. Something has to change. My thought process is that we've seen a lot of bottom of the roster churning going on with this front office. Back at,
sure.
Not really. John Dorsey wasn't really guilty of this because he wasn't really here that long to do it. But back in the early 2000s, you would see guys like fringe roster guys like Aaron Shea, or I'm trying just those guys that were constantly, they were on the team every year. They were going to be on the team every year, and they weren't going to do anything. Like I think Tank Carter was on the team for like 4 years, and he was just not. He was a bottom of the roster guy. So I think that you're going to constantly see those veteran minimum guys just constantly changing, and that's going to help offset the cap. And I think that they're going to work some magic. I mean, Jarvis Landry is another guy that I think that he likes where he's at. I think that there's things that they can do, kind of like what you were referring to earlier with the New Orleans Saints stuff.
Easy Weave commenting in, he says, I think that they drafted Hudson to replace Teller with all the dudes they got to throw money at. He probably walks. So here's what I'm going to say about that, since we're on this topic, and I've breached this topic before, and I feel pretty strongly about keeping Wyatt Teller. So I think they're going to pay Wyatt Teller. And if you look at the contracts and you look at Spot Track and all the books and everything, the two guys that are out of guaranteed money after this year are Bitonio and Treader, right? So, and they're approaching 30 years old. Teller's 26 and was probably the best freaking offensive lineman, some people say, in the league last year. So I would rather pay the 26-year-old and let Bitonio go, who's coming up on 30 years old. That seems to make more sense to me if you're going to cut somebody and put Hudson in. That seems to make more sense.
Analytically, I think that you're right. The problem is I think that Bitonio is more of a locker room. You talked about wanting to keep Jarvis Landry for a lot of those reasons, right? His aura in the locker room. My understanding, Bitonio is he's the longest tenured Cleveland Brown in that locker room. Sure. I think that you can get it both done. I think with the offensive line, I think that maybe what you could see is them focusing on having one swing offensive lineman, whether it's Hudson or Nick Harris, Nick Harris in the interior, those two guys, and then the rest of the depth just being utter garbage, veteran minimum guys. And like, again, that bottom of the roster trying to turn it out. But, I'd like to see them get them both done. I think it's possible.
What about Treader?
He's of the age where I would think that'd probably be the more obvious.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
That's what I said. Bitonio or Treader. And Treader makes sense to me, because, listen, I know he's doing his job. He's played injured for the Browns. I respect the shit out of this guy. So don't get me wrong. But right. He's almost 30 years old, right? He's the president of the Players Association, which just causes really headaches for your organization as a whole in general, year-round, him being there. Not that it's his fault, but just the guy that plays that role on your team, there's a reason why they don't usually stay on the same team very long after they've get that position because it's kind of a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah.
You got to be the guy that says the stuff that's not always popular with everybody, right? Telling everybody to stay away from camp and everything. Well, other teams got 70 plus guys showing up, right? I mean, kind of sucks. It's not his fault, but he's got to stand up for what the players, and I don't know. So throw that into the ring along with the fact that I think Nick Harris is his backup, groomed and ready to go. And I just think offensive line, they're gonna be good there. And they have the best freaking offensive line coach in the NFL. They should be able to plug and play some guys that have been part of the system for a couple years. Drew Forbes, Nick Harris, James Hudson, the guys that played last year at the end of the year that dominated in those games. What was the one kid's name that shut down Cam Hayward that played just the one game, the spot start?
Oh,
yeah.
I can't remember his name. I know who you're talking about those.
Dude, it was incredible. He just shut him down. Completely shut him down, right?
Blake Hance.
Yeah, Blake Hance. He's on the roster. So do they want, all of these guys, I think, Dunn, another guy, Michael Dunn. Thank you, Easy. Good man, Easy Weave with the information there where I couldn't come off the top of my dome with a good man in the chat. And Andrew here says, Baker, then Chubb this year, Ward and Teller next offseason. I totally agree with that. I think, I would be totally happy with that, Andrew. My just thought on the whole thing is that, and Easy's right. Hance replaced Dunn in the playoff game. Dunn was the one that shut down Hayward most of the game, I believe. And they combined, they were magnificent, right? Now, but either way, I just look at Hudson, I'm losing all their names now. Hudson, all the backups. Harris, the guy that opted out. I just said his name a minute ago, and now I can't think of it. They're all offensive line. Drew Forbes, Hance, all these guys with the best offensive line coach in the league. A couple years in the system, another year in the system. If Teller goes out and repeats as the best guard in football, I don't want to let him walk out at age 26. That's just ridiculous.
Right. Well, Alex Taylor's another guy too that's deep on the depth chart. That was a highly regarded college player at the Senior Bowl. He had the longest wingspan in Senior Bowl measurement history. Went undrafted and was kind of he went undrafted, but he's got a lot of traits that people want in the starting tackle. He might not play, but back to your J.C. Tretter point, all five of them can't stay, right? If you have to pick someone to be the weakest link, J.C. Tretter's the weakest link. Sorry, that's just how it is. You got Nick Harris behind him. Nick Harris, you're talking about an all Pac-12 player that if he wasn't shaped the way he was, probably would have been drafted a lot higher. So I'm kind of with you there.
I agree. Same there. And we differ opinions on this wide receiver question, but really, a lot is to be determined on the field this year, right? What happens on the field is going to determine OBJ's future. Let's be real, because if he plays like the OBJ that we've all wanted to see, they're going to find a way to keep him around, right?
Well, you're much more realistic when it comes to contract talk too. I constantly have it in my head, okay, you want this guy, then you make it happen, right? So maybe that's unreal. That's more unrealistic. So I told that's kind of where we differ on the wide receiver thing. So you know what I mean? I think that the NFL's salary cap is a myth that can be adjusted.
You're right. And I've come to grips with that more this year than any year as I watch teams, as I already mentioned and talked about, teams in the cap crunch year find ways to keep players that it looked like they had no way of keeping, right? With all the cap gymnastics and everything. I agree. I just think something has got to give at some point here.
You were 100% right. You were 100% right.
All right, Cap with a question here, and Cap's a smart football guy. He wants to challenge us here, obviously, so he put some really good questions in for us tonight. All right, given Jarvis's limitations, what do you think he's referencing there? Limitations, like deep threat?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Should the Browns use two tight ends less to get a burner on the field. So maybe I guess he's saying more 11 personnel or whatever,
Yeah.
or is it that personnel grouping to at positive, advantageous, right? Estimated value plus estimated value, and we have to find other ways to stretch the field. So my answer to this question, I'll go first here, and I'll let you kind of say. I think that Stefanski is creative enough to stretch the field in any personnel grouping. So I think in 12 personnel, he can find a way to stretch the field. I think you could do it with David Njoku. I think you could do it with Schwartz. I don't think you necessarily have to go away from 12 personnel to do that. Do I think they'll play more 11 personnel this year? I do. Because I think at the end of the year last year, they found a lot of success, more than they did earlier in the year, just letting Baker drop back and do it with his right arm. A lot of it was really, kid gloves early on. But as we got later in the season, Baker did it with his right arm more and more, and I think that they have a growing trust in that, and they were more potent when they did that. So I think that you'll actually see more 11 personnel. I think I have some personnel groupings up here from a couple shows ago. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. I think you put it pretty eloquently. They ran it based off of what I tried to figure it out before we got on the show, how often they did go into a tight end set. The percentage that I came up with was 26%. The league average was at 20%. I think that they could go lower than that. I think that they will be lower than that. Because like you said, I think they got Anthony Schwartz for a reason. I think Baker Mayfield flows really well when he's dishing it on, he's dishing it in a rhythm. But the NFL average, we talk about being 20%, that they also don't have the tight ends that we have. We have Harrison Bryant, Austin Hooper, and David Njoku. So I think that they will lower it, but I don't think it's at a necessity for any limitations for any player. I think that that's just based off of, the game rhythm, more or less. If I had to put money on that, I think that they start every offense. If they start every game with two tight ends, I think that that's probably going to be their go-to to start the game. And then from there, it'll temper down. But I think that to sum it up, I think that they do go less with two tight ends, but I don't think it's because of any limitations.
Yeah, I mean, his question is a good one, right? Because they do need to stretch the field. That's somewhere they need to improve. Do you have to go to 11 personnel to do that? To answer that question, I don't necessarily think so.
Nah.
But do I think they play more 11 personnel in general? I mean, if you look at the figures here, 44 or 26, I mean,
yep.
I think they do. I think they do just because they have more weapons in general. Yeah. But do they need to do that to stretch the field? No, I think they can stretch the field with 12 personnel, and I think that Stefanski is extremely creative that way. So,
shoot, David Njoku might be the best. He might be the best at stretching the field, to be quite honest.
That's kind of what I mean? Yeah, that's kind of – I think that I had that written down, actually. I think they find a whole new role for him this year. I'm expecting big things. With Njoku's, frame of mind changing and the way he played in the playoffs and whatnot, I think it's a lot to build on, don't you, Josh?
Yeah, I love Njoku. I've always loved Njoku. I don't know if he's everybody acts like he's going to rip off a Pro Bowl. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think he's a great player. I don't want to see them trade him. I think that he's the kind of player that they trade and immediately the next year he becomes, the next coming Travis Kelce. So I don't want to see that happen either. I do like David Njoku. I think he plays a role. I think he's a unique player. I think he's fantastic, elite once you get the ball in his hands. I mean, the dude is ferocious to take down. He was like that at Miami. So yeah, I think he has a role.
Yeah, for sure. I do too, and I think they'll use him more. They should become a lot better blocker too as of recent years. So next question here on All Eyes on Cleveland on an Ask Me Anything mailbag edition of the show with special guest Josh Keatley of the Browns Wire podcast, and now the Buckeye Wire too. Where he's putting out fantastic content as always. Go check out Josh's writing. He's a great writer there as well. And a great show co-host here with me. So check out the Browns Wire podcast as well, where your shows can be found where all popular podcasts are found, correct?
That's right. Spotify, iTunes, all of it.
All right. There you have it. That's the Josh Keatley rundown. Josh Keatley, here's our next question tonight, also from Cap. What is the ideal run-pass ratio for the Browns should be targeting neutral game script this year? Which is kind of a loaded question, but go ahead.
So they correct me if I'm wrong because I'm sure you had these stats pulled up too. They ran the ball 42% of the time last season. The average in the NFL was 34%. The lowest in the NFL was 34.6% was the Atlanta Falcons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, who both went to the Super Bowl, were at 39%. So I think that they're right there. I think that they could lower it a little bit based off of Baker having another step forward, like I predict. Adding more weapons, OBJ coming back healthy, Anthony Schwartz being there. I do think he's going to be a factor, obviously, because I've mentioned him 7 times already in this podcast. So I do think that number could be lower, but it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be noticeable. I don't think it's going to affect Chubb's. I don't think any of the running backs are going to be affected statistically based on them lowering the percentage. You don't want them to get too low because obviously you're throwing for your life like the Atlanta Falcons, so they don't want to be at that point. But, like I said, the two teams in the Super Bowl are at 39%, so they're right there.
Yeah, I mean, they were 60-40. Two teams in the Super Bowl were 60-40. I think, obviously, the defense and the team you're playing really dictates this more than anything. That's why I kind of said it's a little bit of a loaded question because you say neutral game script. Well, no game is really a neutral game script because everybody you play is going to have a different you're going to attack differently, right? So I think ideally, though, 60-40 is right where you want to be, right?
Yeah, like I said, if it's 65-35, I'm okay with that too. Like I said, just because thinking that Nick Chubb is going to, Kareem Hunt's going to get the ball out of the backfield out of screens or whatnot. I'm okay with it going down a little bit, but yeah, I mean 35 is too low. 35 is too low. I apologize, but I'm okay with it going down a couple notches, but I mean it is what it is. I don't think they're in a bad place. I don't think they rely too much on it.
Yeah, no, I like it right where it's at. I think they'll do a good job. I mean, they're dedicated to the run game. I think they want to keep that at that 40% level as much as they can, especially with the two backs, right?
I think it's fair.
All right, let's take a look here. Gladys Louise Taylor. What do you think will be the statistical impact of Jadeveon Clowney, Josh?
This is a tough question because I know everybody wants me to say that he's going to blow it up, but we need to be. I'm very positive. I've been very positive the entire show, Brad. We've been on for 45 minutes, and I said that the Browns are going to keep everybody. Everybody's going to be a billionaire, and they're going to go to 7 Super Bowls. Here's where I'm going to be negative. If you're expecting Jadeveon Clowney to come in here and get double-digit sacks and become an All-Pro, you're going to be sorely mistaken. If you take his two last seasons and combine them, he didn't have 5 sacks. You know what I mean? So I don't. It was 2 teams ago. The last time he had over 5 sacks. He's great. He's awesome. He's a great run stopper. He's good. I tell you what, he might have more forced fumbles. He might have more forced fumbles and fumble recoveries than he will sacks. Okay, but he's not gonna come in there and get. He's not gonna get double-digit sacks. He's not gonna get even close. And I know that some people are saying that he's gonna be. You're going to see more of a statistical impact when it comes to Garrett as far as a pass rush goes, than Jadeveon Clowney. I hope he gets more than 5 sacks, but that's just
agreed. Yeah. Okay, so agreed. And here's next question, kind of on the same topic, obviously. So, does he get more than 5 sacks? I agree with you. I don't really care what his sack numbers are, to be honest. I would be nice to have him get a couple. But for me, he's just a fuck the play up guy. That's what he does is he just gets in the backfield and he disrupts the play. Disruption over production all day long. He plays the run really well. And he's going to open up more for those inside guys and Garrett. I just like him as a player, period, more than I do as a sack specialist.
I think that it would not a better question. This is a great question, but I think that a more accurate evaluation of what Clowney brings to the table would be, instead of looking at his individual sacks is looking at the team stats, right? So I don't know what their ranking was last year in regard to sacks, but let's say they were 15. It wouldn't surprise me if they were in the top 10 this year, and I would have no problem with you giving credit to the fact that they added Clowney because he's going to soak up double teams. He's extremely effective, but he's not. Olivier Vernon was not a scrub, dude. He just wasn't a scrub. So I don't know what. No.
He was fantastic.
Yeah,
before he got hurt too. He turned it on at the end. Definitely, he was sorely missed. Yeah. Okay, 2-part question here from the Land Sports retweets. who has the biggest impact of the rookie class? So we can go back here real quickly. I don't want to, everybody that comments, I want to make sure you get your due here. To the very beginning of the show when Troy kicked in on this question, who will be starting job between Greedy Williams and Greg Newsome? And Andrew, I'm going to get to your last comment as well, as we have a question coming up on that too, as far as windows go. But who has the biggest impact out of the rookie class, and along those same lines, who do you think wins that outside corner job opposite Denzel Ward?
So, I mean, obviously the easy answer would be the biggest impact would be Greg Newsome, because I'm expecting him to play immediately. Whether he starts at outside or nickel, he's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. I think if Greedy Williams is 100% healthy, I think he's a phenomenal player. With that said, Greg Newsome is I was on your podcast the day of the draft, and I was not super stoked about the pick. But there's nothing to hate about his film. Greg Newsome is a prototype all-pro level cornerback. He just is. My issue with him in college was that he doesn't have a whole lot of career. He doesn't have the best. He didn't have the most impressive accumulation of tape. The tape he does have is great, but he didn't. There's not a whole lot of tape of him locking out Chris Olave or Rondale Moore, yada yada yada. But that was then. This is now. He checks all those boxes. So Greg Newsome is going to play. I think even if Greedy Williams is healthy, Greg Newsome is probably still going to get the nod over him at whatever role they suit him best. If Greedy Williams plays on the outside and can't, and they view Newsome as more of an attribute or less of a liability on the slot than their other options, then I'm okay with that too. But Greg Newsome is going to play. Greg Newsome is going to be your number 2 corner, and he should have the biggest impact.
Agreed. I think he plays. I think he is the biggest impact, and I think he's the answer to the question of who starts outside. They played him. It's interesting that he profiled as an outside corner only coming out of the draft, but the Browns have had him working in the nickel, in the slot at OTAs and at mandatory minicamp. Not to make too big of a deal of that, but I do think that is out of probably necessity a little bit, maybe seeing how he does in there. Troy Hill is the starting nickel cornerback, no question, hands down. They went out and paid the best one on the market, in my opinion. But I think that, depth-wise, you don't have to go, if he can play in there a little bit and somebody gets dinged, you don't have to go Tavier Thomas or freaking MJ Stewart in the slot nickel as your backup. You can go, Greg Newsome inside and Greedy outside if Troy Hill gets dinged or vice versa or whatever, because Troy Hill can play outside too. So their versatility on those guys makes me feel better about the depth in that room.
I would agree with that. I do think that Greg Newsome, Troy Hill is a very good signing. He's a very good cornerback. I think that his ceiling is with the guys that you're trying to focus on for the future for the ceiling is obviously Newsome and Williams. Hopefully, if Williams is healthy, it wouldn't surprise. Newsome checks all the boxes that you want from someone to play the slot or the outside. He does. He can be an all-pro level cornerback. He's got the length. He's got the quick hips. He's got the feet. He can do it. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to show up because he dealt with some injury issues in college as well. If you want a sleeper answer, James Hudson. I think that if James Hudson gets an opportunity to play, I don't think they're going to get him off the field. If you're wanting like the non chalk answer, I think James Hudson. I think once he gets out there, he's angry, he's mean. He didn't allow any sacks his senior year at Cincinnati. Dude, he was a former 5-star recruit. Dude, he's fantastic, and he gets shit on way too much because of his pro day. Yeah,
I like him a lot too. I liked his film a lot from what I saw. Hands,
fantastic.
Feet, fantastic, right? And his work with Coach Callahan is only going to make him better and add to that stable of guys. So absolutely. Have either of you booked your flight to L.A.? Andrew wants to know. I'm booking 2 trips, once in October and then again in February. Very nice. So if the Browns go to the Super Bowl, are you going to L.A. For the game?
I imagine that those tickets will be a little bit out of my tax bracket. I don't know if I'll be able to afford that little trip.
Yeah.
I'll try.
Yeah. I'm making it happen. If they go, I'm making it happen.
You were going to this. If they go to the Super Bowl, you were 100% going to be in the stadium.
I'm selling my kidney if I have to, brother. I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, I mean, I'd like to try to find a way to do it, get it done. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Once in a lifetime opportunities.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I'm not debating that. That is 100% the truth.
All right. So you're watching All Eyes on Cleveland. Special guest Josh Keatley. We're doing an Ask Me Anything edition of the show here. It's been fun so far. We've got an interesting question here from Cap. I think a lot of reaction on Twitter was, "What? Are you freaking insane?" Like, right? Like all the people after this question. I should have put the replies to this question up. And Cap is great. So thank you for the questions. But, should the Browns trade Myles Garrett before his contract ends? Everybody was like, are you stupid? Are you insane? What, So all the replies. But let's take a real look at it, right? Okay. He's 25 years old. His new contract hasn't even kicked in yet, Josh.
That's true.
Here's Spot Track. He's through 2026, which puts him at 30 years old.
This front office is great. They're geniuses. I love them to death, but they're also going to break some hearts. I don't think it's going to be here. If I had to put money on it, I think Myles Garrett retires I think he retires as a Cleveland Brown. But if you don't think that they're going to pick up the phone and listen to every goddamn offer that comes across the table, you're wrong. You're wrong. There's going to be eventually it's going to happen where some kind of stupid rumor, whether it's stupid or valid or not, it's going to happen where his name is going to come across the board because that's just how this front office operates. We saw that last year when they were talking to Cam Newton. Everybody panicked about that. Oh, we're going to play Cam Newton over Baker Mayfield. Well, no, that obviously was never going to happen. But they pick up the phone. That's what makes this front office so great. They turn over every rock. So,
no question. Yeah, I agree. I think he's very unlikely. I expect him. Pass rushers actually, because there's some nuance to the way you rush the quarterback, pass rushers actually can get better with age at times. You'll see guys go into their 28, 29, 30s and still be able to get sacks at the quarterback, get after the quarterback when you're maybe not quite as athletic because there is some nuance to playing the position, right? Kind of like the old guy at the Y that, is always on the winning pickup team, right? Like you pick up some stuff on the way.
I think that's true. You see it with guys that are like Robert Mathis was like that with the Colts. Jerome Harrison was very much like that with the Steelers, where they just got better and better and better. But those guys, a lot of those guys weren't the athletic freak that Myles Garrett was. So it'll be interesting to see how he ages because so much of his game is I'm bigger and meaner and faster than you. So I he's still a great technician. He's only getting better. So you might be right, but we'll see because he is an athletic freak.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not taking anything away from him. Just saying, kind of, we've seen guys do that with their age at the edge position, right?
Yeah.
In the NFL. Not saying that he's gonna need to do that by any stretch of the imagination. So, Cap again here. So this is kind of Andrew. You asked the question here. Let me go back and look. I'll bring your stuff up here too. Wow, this question is up. We'll kind of hit these both at the same time. Should the Browns push all their chips in to win, or should they be conservative to elongate the window? Probably something in between. But what is that sweet spot? Which way do you lean? Oh my gosh, that rhymed. Did you hear that? It sounded like a song or something, right? Something in between. But what is that sweet spot? Which way do you lean? Unintentional. But yeah, and then Andrew asked here, I also believe that going after Super Bowl, what is that, 50, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
56? Landry and OBJ would restructure new deals, team-friendly to remain in Cleveland, to return to more Super Bowls. And he had a comment here about, where did it go? About the window right here. Brown's core Garrett, Baker, Chubb, Ward, plus new several stars on rookie contracts, 4 to 5 year window. Browns could see 3 trips to the Super Bowl. 80s Browns, no jinxes. So, certainly high hopes from Andrew. I'm right there with you, Andrew. I hope the same thing. Here's how I look at it, right? I think you got to go for it now. This year and next year, you have to go for it because the way you structure your team changes once the quarterback contract hits the books in 2 years. So you still have 2 years left without the new money from the quarterback, right? On the books. You should be able to go for it during those 2 years. And then you kind of have to change your approach of in the way you go for it. You know, veterans here, a little bit more specialty and free agency here and there, less as much building through the draft, but they're doing it the right way now to go for it. I think absolutely spent, rebuilt the offense, rebuilt the defense. I think they're poised to take a run at it 2 years in a row here. And then kind of, once Baker's contract hits the books, you maybe kind of reset. But I still think that window's open after that for sure. But I just think that you have to approach it maybe like in a 2 year, like these 2 years, and then after that, we're gonna go after it still, but you have to go at it in a different method of attacking it, as far as the way you allocate your funds across the payroll.
I would agree. You got to go. I don't want to put in all the chips in. I don't like that term, but I agree with the thought process of you got to try to do what you can to win now. But you don't want to. You got to do everything in your power to win now, but you don't want to mortgage your future.
You do nothing to mortgage the future. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think you can in the right spot. So, like for instance, with the draft, let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example here. But let's say they did.
Here's a good example. What's the cornerback in New England that wants out? Gilmore.
Yeah.
Would you give up a second next year for Gilmore now?
See, that I would do that. That I don't think that is more good. Yeah. I don't think that that's too bad. But when you start talking about first round picks, right? Because that's someone you think is going. Your first round pick in a good front office and in this front office should be an automatic starter, right? The second rounder, you kind of got some wiggle room there. I'm okay. I'm 100% cool with them trading for Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah, if a really good defensive tackle came available, I think that's one area where I'm not totally sure how good they're going to be on the interior. I think they could be really good, but I'm not sold 100%. Yeah, I have to see it materialize kind of, right? I think Billings is good. I think that they're going to be okay there, and they certainly put a lot of talent in camp by bringing in McDowell and all those guys, right? But I'm not sold on that being the best part of their team, right? And I think they could get better. If you could give a second round pickup for a veteran or a guy in his prime, maybe I would do that possibly.
I think, I'm cool with that. And where I would draw the line, when I saw all the stuff about Aaron Rodgers possibly going to Cleveland, right? We all saw that, although it was not going to happen. We saw some stuff on Twitter, right, where people were like, well, the Browns should totally trade Baker, multiple first-round picks to get Aaron Rodgers. That, to me, that's too far. That is mortgaging your future. You're trading the quarterback who's a top 10 quarterback for a quarterback who may be the best quarterback in the league, but you're paying him more money. He's older, and you're trading your draft picks. You're mortgaging your future. You're putting all your quote-unquote all your chips in. That, to me, that is too much, right? Because if it doesn't work out, it's done. You suck for 10 more years, right? So that would be too far for me. But the Stephon Gilmore one, that would be an adequate step that I would take to get this team better.
Yeah, the Baker talk, that was lunacy to me. I gave that no credence, but as far as trading him for...
It was out there.
I know it was out there. I just can't. I don't think that the Browns even thought about that for a second, to be honest. Why would you give up a chance at 10 years of going after a Super Bowl for 2?
Like I said, I get the thought. I'm with you. I'm in the same camp as you, where I disagree with it. I do get the thought process for those that did want to see that happen, right? Let's say right now. That maybe it ups your percentages. Let's use Madden as an example. Maybe you're trading a 90 quarterback for a 99 or whatever. Yeah, that's cool. I get it. It's better, but is it that much better? Is that really? If you don't take, maybe your percentage does. Your chances of winning the Super Bowl do go up. But dude, if you don't win the Super Bowl, you're screwed. You wasted it. It's a waste. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Easy weighing in here says, I think at this point we've got who we've got, and the roster is about as stacked as it can be. Also looks like we have about $20 million under the cap that will roll over. We can't really mess with that. That rollover combined with the rising cap is what's going to allow us to re-sign Baker, Chubb, Ward, and one of Landry and Beckham. I would agree with that for the most part.
We'll see what happens. Like I said, the cap stuff, man. Sometimes they work magic, and I expect the same from this front office. I like Andrew Berry. When they hired Andrew Berry, I was all in on Andrew Berry immediately. The Kevin Stefanski thing, I'll admit. I'll never deny it. I did not like that hire, but Andrew Berry, I really, really, really admire what he does. So I think that if anybody can make it work, make those numbers fit, it's him.
I'm with you. I was a Dorsey fan, so I liked John Dorsey, and Stefanski. I was not. So I wasn't like. I initially came out kind of like, I don't know about this, right? Like, I'm not really sure. But he has blown me away, and I could not be a bigger Stefanski fan ever, because from day one of him, like, getting to view him from our seats here in Cleveland, like, he has been exactly what this team has needed.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with being a John Dorsey fan. He gets shit on too much. He did a lot of good, and people shit on him too much. I was a John Dorsey fan as well. I think that was just an instance of where someone had too much power and too much say, and it just went horribly, horribly wrong.
And he missed. He had sure misses like everybody. He accumulated talent. Like, okay, they accumulated all that draft capital under Sashi, but it wasn't until Dorsey actually, like, even with Sashi, they missed a ton, right?
Well, and they can
that draft capital. Dorsey started the accumulation of talent.
Yes.
And Sashi Brown did a good job accumulating the assets. I'll never say that he didn't, but he didn't hit on anything really draft-wise at all. And then Dorsey accumulated talent quickly and efficiently.
Yeah.
And then to make it even better, you brought in a guy in Andrew Berry who wasn't so ego that he needed to clear everything out. He just took what Dorsey did and built on it, right?
Yeah.
Which was like the perfect fit. And I love Andrew Berry.
And people, when you talk about draft misses, too, Donovan and I did a show a couple weeks ago where we reflected on the 2011 draft class when the Browns drafted Phil Taylor and traded back and all that. And people look back and the Sean Dorsey picks, like, oh, that's a miss. Just because a player, it's really easy to say a player sucks now, right? But when you look, like, for instance, the Caleb Brantley pick, they took Caleb Brantley in the 6th or 7th round or whatever. That guy sucked, and he was cut pretty much immediately. But at the time, that guy had first round hype, and he fell due to some off field issues, right? That's a swing. That's a swing in the right direction. I think, and I'm okay with that. It's when you took now the Antonio Callaway thing. I think that was probably a swing in the wrong direction. But with that said, if that dude didn't fall back into old habits, we saw a glimpse of what he could provide his rookie season. So even then, you know what I mean? It's just like, it is what it is, kind of. It's just like the Phil Taylor pick. We went back on the 2011 draft pick. Everybody talks about him being a bust. Was he a bust? I don't think so. I mean, you look at the other guys in that draft class that were of his size and what they were looking for, and he was pretty much the best one. Yeah.
Hey, you know where Callaway's in camp at?
I thought he was done. Last time I saw him, he was sitting the bench in the XFL.
He's in Chiefs camp.
Really? See, he might figure it out there, or not.
Right? But if he's gonna fit in anywhere, it would be there, right? Speed to burn. So I thought that was very interesting when I heard that. Greg is a great fan of the show, and Greg, thanks for watching and commenting. The rollover amount should not be touched unless there's a big hole created by an injury or in camp or the preseason. I would agree with that, and I actually think they're pretty equipped to handle some depth concerns, even if they arise at this point. The roster on paper is loaded, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't. People are talking about Super Bowl. I think that may be a little unrealistic, but they should definitely be. If they're gonna be in the playoffs. That feels like that's a lock. So
you think Super Bowl's unrealistic?
Maybe unrealistic's too harsh, but that's a little bit of an expectation I'm seeing on Twitter, and I don't know if that should be the case. I feel like there's still some pretty good teams out. You know what I mean? Like,
no question.
Is there a difference between the Chiefs and the Browns? I think there is, right? I think there is.
I think so, but I think that they made up ground this offseason.
100%.
And I think that we may not see it completely in week one because it's going to take some time for this defense to gel together and really,
yeah,
it's going to take games, like actual gameplay for this defense to become what it potentially could be. But the speed accumulated and the versatility accumulated on this defense could be really special. And if you face the Chiefs again in a situation like you did last year, I think they have an excellent chance to beat them in the playoffs when this defense is at its peak performance, because that defense has the potential to be like top 5 in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know what? That's one of the linebackers. The linebackers are the weakest spot, and they are completely transformed. Jacob Phillips was pretty solid last year. He's got another year in. Anthony Walker's very good. Very underrated player. He's going to be very good I'm excited for Anthony Walker. I think he's a very good player. Always loved him since his days at Northwestern. I think that he's going to be very good. And then you got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And then you got Tony Fields at the back, who's another speedy, active linebacker. I think that they added a lot, and that's the weakest part, and it's not so weak anymore. You can make an argument that the special teams wasn't fantastic with Jamie Gillen.
No.
But again, that's a pretty small piece of the puzzle. And if Ryan Switzer's healthy, dude, watch out, because I think he could be an electric returner.
Great story. I hope. Let's just run through these real quick, and we'll get to our last question here. Beckham being able to stretch the field is the only really missing component. We have the QB, the running game, the pass rush, the good game day coaches. Being able to hit the home run is the last piece. I agree. Stretching the field, as we talked about earlier, is a huge area where they need to grow. A rebuilt O-line in Kansas City, can a bunch of guys from various systems gel to protect Mahomes? That's an interesting question too, Greg. I don't know if they can. That's a great question. They're paying the biggest salary to a guard in the league. The guy they brought in there. What's his name? I forget. It's escaping me now. I have his thing right here. Hang on. Extension roundtable. Wyatt Teller comps. It's right here. Joe Tooney.
That's right.
Left guard.
For the record, I think that this offense is as good as any. I think that this offense is comparable to that of. I mean, it's right up there with the Chiefs. The offense isn't the issue at all. I mean, my question is, I feel like where there may not be elite level is on that defensive side of the ball. We'll see, and we'll see if that changes, because they added a lot, like you said, a lot of youth and speed. So if half those guys, if Newsome and JOK are half as good as we hope they are, they should be in a good place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't necessarily know if Newsome has that much pressure on him, because like you said, they did add Troy Hill. If Greedy, I think JOK probably has more pressure on him because those linebackers were pretty rough, and he's going to be asked to do a lot, I'm thinking.
No doubt. Tooney is the highest paid guy guard in the league, by the way, if you're looking for a comp to Teller's potential contract. 5-year, $80 million. That's 17 per. Just FYI. Okay. Back to the AMA questions here. What's the Cleveland Browns? And this is from, French Golden. This is from French Golden. He is on the Gingers Talk Football podcast here in Cleveland. What's the Cleveland Browns' biggest challenge and uphill battle going into the 2021 season?
I jumped the gun on that because I think I already answered that. Obviously, I think the linebackers and the special teams are the biggest weaknesses. But as you said, and I agree with you, they've added speed and they've added people that are competent to that linebacker. I think Anthony Walker is extremely underrated. I think he's going to start and he's going to be very good. I think my hopes are very high for JOK. I think he adds a lot of speed, a lot of tenacity to his linebacker core. I think it's fixed. Special teams, I think, is a bigger issue than people want to admit. They haven't really been good as a return team since 2015 with Travis Benjamin. They just haven't. I feel like they've allowed I feel like I wrote it down somewhere. They've allowed over 25 yards per kick return, which is one of the higher averages in the league. And then Jamie Gillan kind of he's not the best punter in the NFL, so I could see special teams being their Achilles heel. But I've got a lot of faith in Ryan Switzer too, man. I think if he's healthy, he could be the dude. When I was associated with the Ohio State program, and at the time Ryan Switzer was at North Carolina, and a lot of those guys were getting recruited at the same time as him, and they said that he was the most electric athlete in all those elite recruiting camps. And I still think he's got that potential. He just got to be healthy.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I've been following along with his story and his son and everything. It was really sad stuff with Switzer. I don't know, were you following along with that at all?
Yeah.
His son was very ill
with
COVID, and he's okay now, but hoping for the best for Switzer here in Cleveland, as that would be a cool story if he could catch on here. So my biggest concerns are, coming together as a defense, right? I think that, just gelling together. Like, I guess I don't really have concern at linebacker. I think JOK is going to be fine there. I like Anthony Walker there. I really like Jacob Phillips' potential there.
I did too.
A lot of speed. I like the leadership from Walker. And JOK, I think, is going to be fantastic. I love the back end, and the cornerback room is, I think, totally upgraded to being potentially really high-level football. Biggest concern on the defensive side would be that interior defensive line, but I think it can work itself. I think it can work itself out. You have Billings and what's his name, the guy from the Eagles in there, but they I just think
Jordan Elliott, who's probably I was thinking Elliott was going to be the starter there, but you're talking.
You think Elliott's going to start there? I think Jackson and Billings start there.
Maybe Jackson's just so old. I feel like he's going to. I thought that was more of a depth situation. I guess my hopes were high that Elliott was going to take a big turn this offseason. But I think
a lot of people feel that way, but I just don't know. Like, did you really like his tape last year?
No, he was not good at all last year. But
he was very underwhelming.
Yes, but he is very athletic. There were flashes where you could see that, and he was very good at Missouri. So I mean. That is a guy who checks a lot of boxes. Of course, I was a big Malik McDowell fan too, and now he's in Cleveland some years later as a free agent for veteran minimum. So I could be wrong.
That was off the field stuff. So that has nothing to do with his on the field.
And then Tommy Togia, I just feel like I feel like they added a lot there. I feel like I'm less worried about the defensive line, the defensive backs because of the additions and the health there.
Yeah,
that's why I was scared of the linebackers, because if JOK sucks and Anthony Walker is not as advertised, you're back to Mac Wilson and Sion Taki, baby. You're back to square one.
You got Jacob Phillips in there, and
good. Jacob Phillips was great.
And, I think you can do worse than some of the guys. You still got Malcolm Smith on the roster. And I don't know. I think there's enough depth there to be okay. I think JOK is going to be great. I do.
I think so, too.
So I don't really – I think that is going to be an area of strength, actually, more than I thought. But I'm concerned about the interior defense. I'm not concerned. I just want to see it to come together. I'm surprised you think that Elliott's going to start. I don't. I feel pretty strongly. I think even And I know it's just OTAs and minicamp, but right from the start they had Jackson and Billings in there. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Jackson. I think that Billings. I guess I view Billings as being the space eater, and then Elliott being the gap splitter. But maybe like I said, Elliott sucked. So you're not. I'm not saying you're wrong. Elliott was not good last year, but there's a lot more potential. His ceiling is a lot higher, though.
Right? I agree. The ceiling is there. I just want to see it. I just don't hear. I haven't heard a lot of good things. Like I didn't see a lot of good things last year. We saw great tape in college, right? Yeah. I was really high on him. We didn't see a lot of good things on film last year, and then I didn't really hear great things out of OTAs. So we'll see. It's really early. Yeah. It's really early. Go ahead. What did you hear?
No, I didn't. You're right. I didn't hear anything negative either. Just I didn't really hear anything about him.
Okay.
I heard that he sucked.
I heard there were some concerns.
Yeah. See, I heard there were some concerns about Billings too, but I kind of chalked. But I didn't really care because he's more of a space eater. You know what I mean? Like I don't. You can send me all the photos you want of him being overweight. It doesn't really affect me and my stand. I think he's great. I actually gave him a first round grade coming out of Baylor. I love Andrew Billings. He can do no wrong in my eyes.
Well, yeah, I think that he fills a role that was much needed with them, right? Like just so many 3-tech guys. I just think he just adds a totally different aspect to their front. So I like Billings too, and I'm not really worried about him being out of shape at this point, right? Like or anything. So you could be right. It could be Elliott. I hope so. I think he has the potential. But I don't think they would have added all that talent behind them, Josh. Like spending the extra money on Marvin Wilson and going out and getting Malik McDowell and Damian Square.
They drafted
Tommy Togiai, going out and getting veteran Damian Square. Like they've added a ton of talented guys behind them. I don't think they would have done that if they didn't have any concerns about the guys that are up front.
I think that's fair. I think Marvin will. That's fair. I don't have a great argument against that. I think Marvin Wilson was clearly the best dude out there. So I think that it did. I don't think it would have mattered who they had. They could have had Warren Sapp. I think that they were still probably going to make a play for Marvin Wilson because Marvin Wilson was that good. But you're right. They went out of their way to sign a guy Malik McDowell who hasn't played football since like 2018. I think that opposite. I think Square. Man, I don't know if Square's going to make the team because I feel like he doesn't fit what they're going to look for in that opposite defensive tackle spot. But I guess we'll see about that. But you're right; they still added him. They still give him a shot, so it doesn't really matter, right?
I agree about Square. I just think he was a veteran body, but I mean, a lot of those guys aren't going to make the team, right? How are they going to really keep 5 at the most?
That's a good question.
Probably 5. I can't imagine them keeping more than 5 interior defensive linemen on the team.
Yeah, especially with Clowney. You got to envision Clowney
sliding inside. I guess the ability to slide inside.
Yeah, he definitely has the ability. Maybe I'm being too positive about his role and the flexibility that he could play, but I guess when they signed him, my thought was when they signed him, because my original thought process was they were going to sign him, they were going to draft an edge rusher early. Somebody like Gregory Rousseau or whatever, and slide Clowney down, have a pass rusher. That didn't happen, so maybe they don't envision it the same as me. I don't know.
I think they're high on Takk McKinley's ability to rush the passer. I think that we will see Clowney slide inside and have Takk McKinley come off the edge. I think we will see that a lot, like on third downs.
Yeah, they also got some young guns that we'll see. I like Takk McKinley too. Curtis Weaver, I think that he's also another good player. Joe Jackson they signed. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of good options there. Some guys with potential.
My other biggest concern, and then we'll wrap things up here as we've gone way long as usual. Sorry about that. But my other biggest concern is just incorporating OBJ back into the offense and making him. I know you this. I know you disagree with me on this, but so I don't even want to bring it up again. But I just want him to come back in, incorporate in, play his role. Baker not feel the pressure. Let's hope that he's grown past that. I think he has. So that's why I think it works finally. Yeah. And I feel like they were on their way to making it work last year when he got hurt. Like they were close.
Yeah.
Right?
Like the Cowboys game.
They were going in the right direction. So I think that the success Baker had without him, the winning without him, kind of, and then reinserting him may be the best recipe to make it work with OBJ going forward. So that's what I'm hoping for. Do I think it could potentially be an issue? Yeah, I worry about it a little bit just because it has been an issue in 2019 and a little bit for the first 6 games last year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. He's got to be healthy. That's the first thing, right? And the second thing is he's got to be okay with being that's the problem is that the OBJ of old where he was getting, and it's not because he is old. Let me rephrase that. The OBJ being the focal point of the offense, that's not going to happen. There's too much time. There's too much talent on that offense, and the ball needs to be spread around. First of all, second of all, Nick Chubb is likely going to be the star no matter what. Right? They're not. It's not. There's just OBJ. I don't envision him being a statistical monster. Now, I do think he's still one of the most talented receivers in the NFL, but I think it could be more like a Mike Evans situation last year, where everybody knows that Mike Evans is still a top 5, top 10 wide receiver, but he kind of was taking a back seat to Gronk, and Godwin had his games, and then the little white guy from Bowling Green, what was his name? Miller had his games, because that's just how that offense was churning. I could see OBJ having a similar path as that. I don't think he's bad. I just don't know. I don't think he's going to be lighting the world on fire statistically.
It's interesting. I agree with you on that. Like he could play a role, but I do think there's a non-zero chance that like he comes in and Chubb runs for 1,500 and OBJ catches 1,200 and Baker throws for 4,500. I do think there's a non-zero chance that like it all works like perfectly.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a lot. I just feel like there's a lot of mouths to feed on that. OBJ is great. Jarvis Andrews is going to get his. Austin Hooper should get his. They pay him enough to. I think Harrison Bryant's going to get his too because Harrison Bryant flashy. He's got some talent too. I think they're gonna work in. Kareem Hunt's going to see the field still. We talked about David Njoku. There's a lot of mouths to feed. So
there is, but you talk about Hooper. I mean, statistically, last year he didn't really do very much at all statistically, but he did what he needed to do for the team, right? Catch the ball in the red zone, and like if OBJ comes in and plays that Higgins role, which he was catching the ball for 17 yards a throw or a reception for the last 3 games, if he does that for the whole season, he's going to have 1,500 yards. And he's better than Rashard Higgins. So, I just think there is a possibility where it all works that way.
I guess that's fair. That's a fair point.
I mean, look at what Higgins was fantastic down the stretch. Yeah.
OBJ is he's easily a top. I don't think you can find an individual in the world that would say that he's not a top 20 wide receiver despite the last couple seasons injury issues. I mean, right?
Agreed. And he looks fantastic right now. I mean, like he's a freakish specimen. Like how do you come back from injury the way that he has is pretty remarkable. All right, man. You've been fantastic. You are always a gentleman and a scholar, and we are always glad to have you on the show. And killing it as usual. Go check out all of your work at the Buckeyes Wire, the Browns Wire, the Browns Wire podcast. Anything else you want to plug here before we get out of here?
Dude, that's it, man. I've just been working on those 2 sites. Check out the Browns Wire podcast. And Donovan and I, the latest episode, we're talking to Johnny Stanton, the current Cleveland Browns fullback. He's got some charity work that he was discussing. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the 2011 NFL draft and had DeAndre Smelter on, who was a former San Francisco 49er. So we got some things working on. The last couple episodes were okay. Everybody should check them out.
I'm sure they were better than okay. Troy Hill's got something to tell you real quick.
All eyes on Cleveland. We here. Yeah.
There you go. That one's for you, buddy. Thanks for coming on the show, and as always, you are great. And I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Absolutely, anytime, man.
All right, we'll be right back after the short break. And we're back here at All Eyes on Cleveland. Mikey, where is my banner? Come on, brother. Killing me here. There we go. We're back here at All Eyes on Cleveland. My name is Brad Ward. Mikey's on the ones and twos. Big thanks to Josh Keatley stepping in to answer all the AMA questions that you submitted to the show. You can catch the show on here on YouTube and Facebook. If you're on YouTube right now or you're watching it on playback, it's free content. We work really hard at it. Don't ask anything, but you just hit that little like button and subscribe. Keep coming back. It's crazy. I look at the analytics on the show, and we've been growing huge with subscribers, and I thank everybody out there that's participating and follows and watches the show. But it's like 80% of the viewers every week are non-subscribers, and that blows my mind. So hit that subscribe button. Come back every week, every show. We have great guests. We do great interviews, and we're putting out content all the time that I promise you will like here at All Eyes on Cleveland. So do that. A couple things here, taking care of business real quick. A couple questions that we didn't get to. One of them was, what is the best show you have seen on television recently? Like, I love, The Wire, Breaking Bad. All those shows are all at the top of my list. I love a good TV show, and the best show that I have seen recently that I would urge you to go watch is on Netflix. It actually originated on Crackle. The show is called The Startup. It's on Netflix. If you like stuff like Breaking Bad and The Wire and all those classics, you will love The Startup. Go watch it on Netflix. That was one of the questions for my AMA, so I'm giving you a tip there. There's a show that you can go stream. It's awesome. Check it out. Also, a show that I'm watching just came out with a new season that you should check out. It's called Mr. In Between on FX. If you haven't been watching that, it's awesome too. It's only a half hour long, but it's awesome. I love that show as well. Two newer shows. Ozark with a new season coming out too, and that's awesome as well. Along the same lines as those other really good shows to watch. So that was a question I didn't get to on the AMA questions tonight. I wanted to hit that. We have partnered with Fanatics and Vivid Seats. Fanatics has all the Browns summer wear out now, and the 2021 training camp hats, bucket hats, shirts, they're all available on Fanatics. If you go to the description below in YouTube, or if you're listening on podcast, it should be in the description there as well. The link to the Fanatics site. Go check it out, and you can get any of the new Browns gear. We're gonna, I'll have some on here soon enough. We'll have a promo code for you. Same thing with Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats has game packages you can get for the Browns, as well as single game tickets, and we're gonna have a promo code where you can get a discount just for entering the promo code from the show on tickets and Fanatics gear. Stick with us on that. We're working on getting all those kinks worked out. So thanks for tuning in to the show tonight. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show. Anything you can do to help us out, it's fantastic. Go Browns, baby. And we'll be back next week with two fantastic guests, two shows next week. We'll be back to give you more content. Thanks for watching. Big thanks to Josh Keatley again, for Mikey on the ones and twos, always killing it, knocking it out of the park. This has been another edition of All Eyes on Cleveland.
Sir, all eyes on Cleveland. We here. Yeah.
And with that, we are out.